which is either true or not true, or true with reservations or untrue. He is sort of regularly confronted by moral obstacles which he must deal with.
Before his death, Robert Mitchum dropped a bombshell about Charlton Heston that left everyone stunned. Born Robert Charles Derman, Mitchum on August 6, 1917, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, his early life was anything but easy. He came from a working-class family that hustled just to get by, moving from place to place while chasing stability. His father worked dangerous stunts, while his mother fought hard to keep food on the table. Those tough times exposed young Robert to the raw side of life, shaping him into a man who didn't back down from anything. That same grit later became the soul of his Hollywood image, real, rough-edged, and impossible to fake. Mitchum's early struggles weren't just a backstory, they were the foundation of his legendary coolness on screen. When he finally broke into Hollywood, it wasn't through fancy connections or luck. It was through pure grind. He'd done it all, from odd jobs to risky stunt work, before people started noticing that deep, calm voice and that magnetic presence that pulled you in. His early hits in the 1940s, like 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, 1944, and Undercurrent, 1946, proved he wasn't just another pretty face. He had something different, a quiet power that kept audiences hooked. While other actors in that era went big and dramatic, Mitchum played it smooth and real. His style felt modern, even ahead of its time. He wasn't trying to be perfect. He was raw, complicated, and human. That's what made him stand out. He became the face of the mysterious anti-hero. Men who weren't good or bad, just dangerously in between. By the late 1940s and 1950s, Mitchum had fully claimed his spot among Hollywood's elite. One of his biggest early breakthroughs came in Out of the Past, 1947, the ultimate film noir classic. As Jeff Bailey, the private detective tangled in lies, desire, and betrayal, Mitchum delivered a performance that still gives chills today. Every scene carried that quiet tension, that sense that something dark was always lurking just beneath the surface. And that's exactly what made him unforgettable. Mitchum's effortlessly cool attitude mixed with that quiet storm of emotion underneath made him the ultimate film noir icon. He didn't just act his roles, he became them, breathing life into every character like they were real people pulled straight from the shadows of his own past. Whether he was playing a broken-hearted lover, a ruthless villain, or a calm hero hiding his pain, Mitchum made it all feel raw and authentic. One thing that set him apart was his incredible versatility. People often tagged him as the dark, mysterious type, but Mitchum could flip the script anytime. He nailed westerns, cracked jokes in comedies, and even sang his way through musicals without missing a beat. His role as the bone-chilling preacher Harry Powell in The Night of the Hunter, 1955, still sends shivers down spines. The way he played that calm, sinister charm was scarier than any loud villain could ever be. It was pure nightmare fuel, delivered with a smile. But Mitchum wasn't all darkness and danger. In lighter films like The Story of G.I. Joe, 1945, he showed a whole different side. A warm, funny, down-to-earth guy who could make audiences laugh and feel safe, even for a moment. That balance kept his career fresh for decades, even as Hollywood kept reinventing itself. He proved he could do it all and still stay true to who he was. Off-screen, Mitchum carried the same rebel energy that made him a legend. He wasn't about fake Hollywood glamour. He had a sharp wit, dry humor, and zero patience for phony attitudes. Studio execs both admired and feared him because he played by his own rules. His run-ins with the law, his quiet love of fishing and poetry, and his reputation as a smooth-talking ladies' man only added more mystery to his name. What made him truly different, though, was that he never lost touch with reality. While others got lost in fame, Mitchum stayed grounded, often slipping away from the spotlight to live simply and freely. Every glance, every pause, every line he delivered came with that realness audiences could feel. He wasn't pretending to be Hollywood. He was living on his own terms, both inside and outside of it. Robert Mitchum was a man who understood fame inside out, but refused to let it cage him. He knew exactly how Hollywood worked, yet he stayed untamed, never letting the spotlight dictate his moves. His influence went way beyond the big screen. His cool voice, laid-back swagger, and natural delivery shaped how generations of actors carried themselves. That effortless confidence became the gold standard for what modern masculinity looked like in cinema. Directors and co-stars couldn't stop talking about him. They said he barely needed any direction because he always knew what the camera needed, like he had a sixth sense for storytelling. His calm, precise performances flipped the script on the over-the-top drama of that era. While others shouted and gestured wildly, Mitchum could steal a whole scene with just one look or a single line. That quiet power made him unforgettable and turned him into a legend that never aged. In his personal life, Mitchum's story was just as complex. He married Dorothy Spence in March 1940, a partnership that lasted almost 60 years. Dorothy, known for being calm, loyal, and incredibly strong, stood by his side through chaos and fame alike. When they married, Mitchum was just getting started in Hollywood, and their relationship had to survive the wild mix of rising fame and restless ambition that came with his success. Together, they raised 3 children, each growing up in the shadow of a father who was both a movie icon and a man constantly stirring up headlines. The Mitchum family had to balance between private life and public pressure, yet somehow they managed to hold it together, even when scandal loomed. Their bond was tested again and again, but Dorothy's patience and resilience kept their family grounded while the world watched in awe. Still, Mitchum wasn't exactly a one-woman man. Behind his suave charm and brooding looks was a side of him that couldn't resist temptation. Hollywood insiders whispered about his affairs, and the tabloids were always ready to pounce. His love life became a spectacle, painting him as the ultimate bad boy of classic cinema. Yet, despite the rumors and the chaos, Mitchum never seemed to care about what society thought. He lived on his own terms, chasing freedom, passion, and danger with that same cool smirk that made audiences fall in love with him all over again. Even with all the rumors and his string of affairs, Dorothy Spence never walked away. She stayed steady through it all, handling Robert Mitchum's wild side with incredible grace and quiet strength. Her loyalty wasn't born out of naivety. It came from a deep, complicated love that went beyond the chaos. It's almost unbelievable, but their marriage lasted nearly 6 decades, something almost unheard of in Hollywood, where relationships fall apart faster than movie premieres. From their wedding day in 1940 to Mitchum's final days in 1997, they stood together through every storm. Dorothy faced public gossip, legal trouble, and her husband's endless temptations, yet she never broke. She knew the man behind the fame, the one who, despite his flaws, always found his way back home. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was real, built on history, respect, and a strange kind of loyalty that only grew stronger with time. Their marriage was a living contradiction, rocky yet unbreakable. Dorothy's quiet patience and strength balanced Mitchum's rebellious energy. And deep down, even through his self-indulgent ways, Mitchum understood that family mattered. He wasn't the typical Hollywood husband, but his devotion to Dorothy, in his own complicated way, was undeniable. Their love story didn't sparkle like a movie. It endured, standing out as one of the most surprising and powerful unions in all of Hollywood history. Through decades of fame, temptation, and personal chaos, they stayed bound together until the very end. Their story only truly ended when Mitchum passed away at 79, a legend leaving behind a legacy of art, mystery, and a love that defied the odds. But before his death, Robert Mitchum had one more shock left for Hollywood. Known for that gravelly voice, moody charm, and no-nonsense attitude, he decided to speak his truth, and he didn't hold back. In one of his final interviews, Mitchum made comments that sent waves across the industry. People were stunned by how blunt he was, especially when he started talking about fellow actor Charlton Heston. He didn't sugarcoat a thing. Mitchum reportedly said Heston wasn't always what he seemed on screen, or even in public. That line alone shook the Hollywood circle, leaving everyone wondering what secrets the late legend was hinting at. People loved to put him on a pedestal, but there was a side to him most never saw. Mitchum's words landed like a thunderclap across Hollywood. Charlton Heston, the man worshipped for his towering presence, commanding voice, and unforgettable performances in Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments. was the poster boy for old-school honor and heroism. So, hearing Mitchum suggest that Heston wasn't exactly the man everyone thought he was, that turned heads fast. Mitchum hinted that beneath Heston's flawless public image lived a far more complicated man, someone layered, misunderstood, and maybe even a little darker than the roles he played. And Mitchum wasn't just guessing. He knew the scene. He'd spent decades in the heart of Hollywood's power circle, where fame, politics, and quiet rivalries constantly clashed. He'd seen the real faces behind the silver screen smiles. "We worked in the same circles," Mitchum explained. "Saw the same parties, the same premieres, and you get to know people. You understand who they are when the cameras aren't rolling, and not everything matches the legend." That one quote hit hard. It wasn't just about Heston. It was about the whole illusion Hollywood sells. Mitchum was pulling the curtain back on a truth most people didn't want to hear: the gap between who stars seem to be and who they really are. Unlike so many polished icons who built their lives around image control, Mitchum never cared to play that game. He was raw, straightforward, and sometimes brutally honest. His decision to speak about Heston so openly wasn't malice. It was a reflection of how he lived. Say the truth, no matter who it unsettles. For Mitchum, honesty mattered more than image, even if it made people uncomfortable. He didn't stop there either. Mitchum peeled back more layers, describing sides of Heston that few outsiders ever witnessed. He could be incredibly charming, Mitchum recalled, but there were moments of stubbornness, arrogance, and an obsession with control that could be hard to handle. That statement sent Hollywood buzzing. The idea that one of its most revered heroes might have had a more complicated personality behind the scenes? It made everyone wonder just how much of the golden age glamour was real, and how much was just good acting. Mitchum wasn't out to take shots at Charlton Heston. He was just telling the truth about a man who was far more complicated than his polished public image. He wasn't painting a villain. He was describing someone trying to balance fame, power, and expectation under the brightest lights imaginable. By the time Heston became deeply involved in politics, especially as a leading voice for the National Rifle Association, his activism often began to overshadow the actor the world once adored. Mitchum's words hinted that even long before that, those same traits, strong opinions, control, and conviction, were already visible behind the scenes. According to Mitchum, those early glimpses shaped how Heston moved through Hollywood, quietly affecting his relationships and the way people interacted with him. The old Hollywood circle wasn't as glamorous as outsiders like to believe. It was a mix of ambition, ego, and quiet competition. Mitchum knew it better than anyone, and he didn't sugarcoat it. "People like to think the stars all get along," he said. "But it's a business first, and the friendships are complicated. Charlton was no different. You never really know who's your friend and who's just playing a role off camera." That confession pulled back another layer of the Hollywood illusion. Mitchum was pointing out something few dared to admit. The line between real friendship and performance in that world was paper thin. Everyone wore a mask, and sometimes, even they forgot what was underneath. What made Mitchum's words powerful wasn't bitterness, it was honesty. He wasn't trying to ruin Heston's name, he was humanizing him. He wanted people to remember that behind that chiseled hero image stood a man with flaws, contradictions, and insecurities like anyone else. Heston wasn't carved from marble, he was human, dealing with pressures and weaknesses the world rarely saw. By the time Mitchum shared these thoughts, he was nearing the end of his own life, and his tone carried the weight of reflection. There was a quiet sadness in his words, as if he'd finally made peace with the truth about fame and humanity. "When you've been around as long as I have," he said, "you see the cracks in the masks people wear, and you realize that the truth about someone isn't what you read in magazines or see in interviews. It's something else entirely, something far more human." That line hit like a final piece of wisdom, raw, real, and stripped of Hollywood's sparkle. Mitchum's last reflections felt like a gift to the audience he'd entertained for decades, a reminder that even the brightest stars fade, and that behind every legend lies a real person, imperfect and fragile. By the final years of his life, the hard living and heavy habits that had built his myth were beginning to take their toll. The invincible screen rebel was now facing the one thing even he couldn't charm or outwit: time itself. Robert Mitchum was known for many things: his deep voice, his no-nonsense cool, and that unforgettable stare. But behind all that swagger was a man chained to one dangerous habit. He was a heavy smoker nearly his entire adult life, long before anyone talked about the deadly risks of tobacco. On film sets, during interviews, or just relaxing off camera, that cigarette was practically part of him. It hung from his fingers as naturally as his half-smirk, or that sleepy, defiant gaze everyone recognized. For Mitchum, smoking wasn't just a habit, it was part of his legend. That constant trail of smoke fit perfectly with the rough-edged image he built on screen. The kind of man who looked like he'd been through the fire and come out tougher. Whether it was in a gritty noir, a hard-hitting war movie, or a dusty western, the cigarette became his silent sidekick, reinforcing the myth of a man who had seen it all and didn't care what anyone thought. But time doesn't play favorites, not even with Hollywood icons. After decades of smoking, the toll finally hit hard. In his later years, Mitchum was diagnosed with lung cancer, and the strong, untouchable figure audiences adored began to fade. Friends and family saw his health slowly decline. His voice grew weaker, his body thinner, and that once invincible energy began to fade away. The man who had embodied strength and calm now faced a battle he couldn't simply charm his way out of. Even as his body weakened, Mitchum never lost his sharp mind or that cutting wit that made him stand out. He didn't ask for pity, and he didn't try to dress up his pain with poetic words. He faced his illness the same way he faced life, with a quiet toughness and brutal honesty. He knew what caused it, and he never pretended otherwise. "You make your choices," he once said, "and then you live with them." That simple truth summed up everything about him, a man who didn't flinch from consequences, no matter how dark they were. Robert Mitchum passed away on July 1st, 1997, in Santa Barbara, California, at the age of 79. His death marked the close of an unforgettable chapter in Hollywood history, a time when stars were rough around the edges, unapologetically flawed, and larger than life. The world lost more than a movie star that day. It lost one of the last true originals. When the news broke, tributes flooded in from across the industry. Fellow actors, directors, and critics all had something to say about the man who could command a scene without raising his voice. They spoke about his rare ability to blend menace with tenderness, irony with warmth, all through a glance, a pause, or a single perfectly delivered line. Mitchum wasn't just performing, he lived every role, making every moment feel brutally real. In the end, Robert Mitchum's story wasn't about perfection, it was about authenticity. He was bold, flawed, honest, and utterly human. His life was proof that real legends don't need polish, they just need truth. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life and legacy of Robert Mitchum, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. What's your favorite Mitchum moment on screen?